We are experiencing a drought in North Carolina, and my question to you is, how bad is it for us here in coastal North Carolina?
We are still in the moderate, but I'm going to assume that after we have the report on Friday and Saturday, that we're going to go a little bit higher. So,
okay. When you say higher, what does that mean?
Well, we're going to go. We were right on the edge of the low to moderate. I'm pretty sure we're going to be definitely in a moderate drought. If we don't get rain in the next couple of weeks, then it'll probably go up to a little bit higher drought.
Okay. What's interesting is I saw a story in the Raleigh News and Observer, of all places, where in the Triangle Market, they are going to put on water restrictions.
Yes, they're in severe drought up there in the Raleigh area. We're not quite that bad yet because we've had rain in the last couple of weeks. But if we don't start getting some significant rain, we're going to be in that severe drought as well.
Okay, so what should we do to prep for that? Because I think every indication is we're going to have a drought this year. It's part of that cycle we go through. We've had periods of severe drought. I remember there was a period of time years ago when we actually had people whose wells, they were under the rubric of shallow wells, probably 50, 60 feet deep, where they ran dry.
Yeah, I remember back in, 2008, somewhere around there, they put us on water restrictions.
Right.
It's one of the things that we can do, and I know this is really hard for a lot of people, is for those of us that like to irrigate our water our gardens and our lawns, plants like trees and shrubs have a much deeper root system, so they're not going to need to be watered nearly as frequently. Lawns and then maybe the annuals that you put in, those are going to be a little bit shallower root system, so they'll need a little bit more irrigation. But even then, once or twice a week is plenty to run the water system. You just need to put enough water on when you water to get it down deep enough to where the roots can still get it without it being evaporated by the sun's heat. So about 3/4 of an inch to an inch of water is plenty of water to put on there. And annuals, maybe a half an inch twice a week would be a better option, but for turf grass, you want a 3/4 of an inch to an inch of water.
How often?
I would say if you're going to do 1 inch of water once a week, if you're going to do twice a week, put down 3/4 of an inch twice a week. In our heavily sandy soils, that 3/4 of an inch is going to go down about 8 to 10 inches and moisten the soil 8 to 10 inches deep. And so that should be plenty deep for the grass to be able to grow and do well. If you have a heavier soil, like a loam or even a clay loam, 1 inch a week would be enough. Once a week would be enough to get it down that 8 to 10 inches because the soil holds that water a little bit better.
Okay, I want to go to one other item, and then we're going to come back to the inches of water here in a moment, and that is shrubbery. For example, our shrubs like our camellias and azaleas and any others that you might mention. Should we treat them any differently? You mentioned the trees, the roots go deeper. How about shrubs? Do they go deeper, and are they more drought tolerant as a result?
Trees and shrubs usually are going to have a deeper root system, so they're going to be more drought tolerant.
Okay.
Now, if we've put plants in the ground that like to have constantly moist soil, they're not going to be as drought tolerant. So they would need to be watered a little bit more frequently. For example, we'll take river birches because I have one of those in my front yard.
Right.
Whenever we go more than a couple of weeks without water, the leaves start turning brown and dropping off of my river birch. And it's just one of those things. It's called a river birch because it likes to be near the river.
That's right. Yeah.
So it likes to have lots of water. I'm not going to water it that frequently. The roots are very shallow on a river birch compared to other trees. So if it doesn't get the moisture it needs, it's going to tend to dry out.
Okay.
Then the leaves are going to fall off. So if you have a tree where the leaves tend to dry out and fall off, that's one that's going to need a little bit more water or irrigation a little bit more frequently.
Okay. let's talk about the purpose of mulch and things of this nature. Is this now a very important aspect of this to keep that moisture in the ground?
Mulch is really good for keeping the moisture in the ground. It keeps the soil temperature a little bit cooler. It doesn't allow the sunlight to evaporate the moisture out of that top half an inch to an inch of soil. So you're able to keep more of that moisture in the soil than if you don't have mulch. Now, that mulch can be whatever you want it to be. It can be rocks. It can be pine straw. It can be
rocks.
Rocks are used as a mulch quite frequently, as long as you've got a thick enough layer to where the rock, it's not just one layer thick. It's got to be about 2 to 3 inches thick, to where you've got enough rock there to where it's shading the ground and the heat's not transferring through the rock and into the soil.
Okay.
That will keep most of the weeds from growing, but it will also keep the moisture in the soil and keep the soil a little bit cooler so the plants can grow a little bit longer.
Okay. And then I want to go back to the inch and a half, 3/4 of an inch. How do I know how much water to put in and around my grass? And I mean, I'm running my irrigation system and it's sprinkling and it's going around in a circle or going back and forth. How do I know when to stop it?
That is a great question, and here is the answer. What I recommend doing is taking some straight-sided containers. That can be cans, that can be cups or glasses or whatever, just straight-sided containers. So the side of the container is straight. It's not slanted so that it's wider at the top and shallower at the bottom. But straight-sided containers, and put those out in several different places in your yard.
Okay.
Run the irrigation system for however long you usually run it, and then go and measure how much moisture is in the bottom of each container.
Okay. Should I basically dig a little hole in the ground and put it down into the container so that it's at level with the ground?
No.
It doesn't matter? It can just sit on the ground?
Just set it on the ground.
Really?
Cat food cans, tuna fish cans, they work really good because they're about an inch, 3/4 of an inch to an inch. You can just set them right down on and they're also really shallow. They're not really tall, so you're not going to have a wide variant.
I have to go get a cat now just so I can have a cat can. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
You don't have to get a cat. Just buy the tuna fish and have tuna salad for a little while.
Okay. That's a good idea.
But
now that I'm hungry.
But you put those out in several different locations. The general idea is to make a grid and put them in the ground in a grid, and then run your irrigation system and measure how much water ends up coming into your cans as an average over that entire area.
Okay. Now, same would hold true with the irrigation around shrubs and things of this nature.
Yes.
Okay.
But keep in mind that the trees and shrubs are going to have deeper roots, so they're going to be able to get that soil moisture that's a little bit deeper, so they won't need to be watered nearly as frequently.
Okay. Let's talk about irrigation systems. You've got this typical spray system, but you also have drip systems as well.
Right.
A drip system seems to me to be very efficient, but you've got to know how much you're letting into that drip system.
Well, a lot of those drip emitters will tell you how much they're putting in, like 2 gallons per hour or 5 gallons per hour. Okay. So you have on the drip emitter how much is going in per hour.
All right.
Okay. And when you know that, you know about how much is going down there. So 2 gallons per hour is going to be quite significant if you run that for an entire hour. Mm-hmm. But if you've got a large area and you've got a heavier soil where that water is going to spread out, 2 gallons per hour would be probably what you want it to run for about an hour.
Good question on that. You could comment. You said spread out. When the water hits the ground, does it not just kind of seek a dry area? I mean, it gets sort of vacuumed into that, or does it go straight down?
Kind of, it does a little bit of both.
Okay.
Gravity's gonna pull it, so it's gonna want to go straight down. But because it adheres to the soil particles, it's going to spread out. So in a sandy soil, it's going to want to go down instead of out because it's not able to adhere to all the particles next to it. In a heavier clay or loamy clay soil, it's going to spread out more, so it'll have a wider ring of moisture in that heavier kind of soil than it will in a sandy soil.
Okay. I'm not really sure what kind of soil I've got. Is that a reasonable comment?
If you don't know what kind of soil you have, you can dig a little bit of that soil and fill it. If it feels really gritty, it's a sandy soil and more moisture is going to go down.
Okay.
If it feels really smooth or really sticky when it's wet, it's going to be more loamy or clay. And then so it'll spread out a little bit more. If you really want to know what kind of soil you have, you can send a sample off to the soil test lab up in Raleigh, and they can tell you how much mineral and whatnot is in there so that you can get a better idea.
All right, we're talking with Shawn Banks. We've been going over the concerns associated with the drought, concerns that I have. I've got to worry about my yard. I want to talk to you about the need for fertilization and or weed control, and do weeds love drought? Those are 3 questions I'm going to ask. But I want to go back to something you said a few moments ago. We were talking about how much moisture is needed for in drought conditions. And so can we just recap that very quickly? For deep-rooted plants, for shrubs and trees, how much moisture do we need to put in?
And you can water the trees and shrubs probably once or twice a month and give them about 1 inch to 1.5 inches of
Once or twice
moisture.
a month?
Yeah, just once or twice a month. They're not going to need to be irrigated as often as, say, your annuals, annual flower plants, or your turf grass. The turf grass and the annuals are going to have a much shallower root system. Most of those roots are going to be in the top 4 to 8 inches of soil.
Right.
So they're going to need to be watered a little bit more in order to keep them from drying out and having problems with the drought.
Okay. And for lawns, how much water do we want to put down in a week's time?
For the lawns, you want to put down between 1 and 1.5 inches. So if you want to water twice a week and you have a heavy sandy soil or a light sandy soil, I would say irrigate 3/4 of an inch twice a week. If you have a heavier soil, more loamy soil, you would want to put that down 1 inch of water each week, 1 time a week.
Okay. And related to the lawns, what's the best time of day to do your watering?
If you irrigate early in the morning, the water has a chance to get down into the soil, and then when the sun comes up, it dries it out so you don't have problems with fungal pathogens attacking like you would if you water it late in the evening.
How early are we talking, like at 4 o'clock in the morning?
You can water as early as you want, 2, 3, 4 o'clock. If you have an irrigation system where it has a timer, you can turn that timer to run at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. That way it's done irrigating before you go outside and you don't have to worry about walking through the sprinklers.
Okay. 1.5 inches for water per week. What about shrubbery?
Shrubbery, like I said,
shrubbery,
that would be like with the trees and shrubs. You would do that about 1.5,
Okay.
maybe twice a month. It
Okay.
would be all that you would really need because they're going to be able to reach the deeper water source.
And you said putting down mulch is a good thing to do at this time of year.
Yes.
Anyhow, let's talk here about fertilization, weed control. My first question is, do weeds love it when it's drought time because they are more tolerant and more hardy than say the grass or the various plants? I'm going to tell you, the vines are just they those suckers are.
They have not stopped growing, have they?
They haven't stopped. I mean, it's only been a couple of weeks and they have sprouted above the shrubs.
Yeah, we've got a couple of vines over at the community college that are sprouting out through the top of the shrub, probably about a foot and a half already.
Those suckers are strong. I mean,
and you can keep in mind that those vines, those woody vines, they're going to have a deeper root system because they're there as a woody plant, so it's going to continuously have that deeper root system.
They also have that potato in the ground.
They have that potato in the ground, so they're going to be able to have that moisture to continue to grow even through a drought. To answer your question, it depends on the weed. As far as some weeds like to have wet soils. For example, alligator weed does better if it's growing in the ditch or along the edge of a ditch or along the edge of a pond. So it's going to do better in those wet areas. If it gets up onto a dry area and we're going through a drought, then it's not going to do as well up there in the grassy area. However, dandelions tend to do just fine in a drought.
They do. What do you mean? They do well anytime. How about pennywort? Just out of curiosity.
Pennywort is another one of those that has that thick, fleshy stems that are underground, so it's going to store some of that moisture.
Wow.
They're going to do just fine. And what I found with pennywort is they tend to not grow as fast during a drought period, but because they have a really thick waxy covering on the leaf, they don't dry out either.
Okay. Let's talk about weed control and fertilization. Should we do anything about weed control in the drought environment?
If the weeds are not actively growing, then
How do you know? I mean,
if we're going through a drought and everything's kind of drying up and it doesn't look like it's green, it's curled, it's probably not actively growing. So if it's not actively growing, then the chemical isn't going to work on that weed to kill the weed. So it's better to wait until it rains or till that weed is actively growing before you try to put a weed control product on there.
How about fertilization?
Fertilizer, right now, if you haven't already fertilized your trees and shrubs, yes, I would go ahead and fertilize trees and shrubs. As I'm putting my perennials and annuals into the ground that I'm buying this time of the year, because there are so many pretty flowers out there right now, it's just amazing. I do put some fertilizer around the flowers as I'm putting them out to help them get established and get the roots out there. They're used to having irrigation and fertilizer 2 or 3 times a week, so it's better to go ahead and give them that fertilizer and let them have what they need as they continue to grow. But fertilizing the lawn, I would wait until the first part to the middle part of May before putting down fertilizer on the lawn. Mine's starting to green up. It's getting pretty green, but it's to the point now where I'm probably mowing once every 2 weeks.
Right. When
I get to the point where I need to to mow it once a week, then I'm going to go ahead and fertilize.
You're going to have to water. I would just tell you that right now. We were talking a few moments ago, we were looking at the weather, the potential of colder weather coming up, cooler weather next week, but still the drought. Cool weather and drought, I would assume, are not good.
Cool weather with a drought is probably better than hot weather with a drought.
Okay.
The cooler weather, we are expecting lows in the 50s Monday and Tuesday, but then it jumps right back up into the 60s. So I don't know if you can really call that cool weather. But yes, it is going to be cooler on Monday and Tuesday than it will be the rest of the week. With a drought, when you have higher temperatures, then the plants need to have more moisture because they're going to be respiring a little bit more, more transpiration, so they're losing a whole lot more water.
Okay.
Cooler temperatures, everything tends to slow down a little bit, so you're not losing as much water. So the drought doesn't affect it nearly as much. So the warmer the temperature is, if we're in a drought, the more important it is to water.
Okay. All right. What about the possibility of critters? Basically, any kind of insects or things of this nature that we have to worry about. I love critters. You like my critter.
I was thinking, what kind of critters? Are you talking worms? Are you talking insects? Are you talking the furry kind?
Yeah.
Insects are out now. They're out and about. The warmer.
Will they be impacted by any kind of drought? Drought
generally does not affect the insects. The cooler temperature will slow down their maturation period, but the insects are going to get most of their moisture out of the plants that they eat. Okay. So the drought's not really going to affect them until the plants start curling up and turning brown.
The insects, how about fungi and things of that nature?
Yeah, the diseases. they're gonna work on the plants. So
no matter what.
Yeah, unless it gets really dry to the point where they can't infect because there's no moisture on the leaf.
Okay.
And that's one of the things that we do recommend that people do if they're having problems with leaf spot. Cut back on getting the leaf wet.
Yeah.
And allow those leaves to dry out, and you'll have less problem with that fungal pathogen.
All right, we jumped right into the conversation today. I didn't even ask if you have anything happening in the real world.
Well, I do have things happening in the real world. I've got I'm doing programs this week and next week.
As a matter of fact, you were at a library program.
I was at a library program on Thursday, so before coming here, and I'm doing that same program. It's
what's it on?
Growing in small spaces.
Okay.
So we're going to talk about growing in containers, and I'll have that program. Let's see, Monday will be at the Down East Library from 4 until 5 on Monday. And then the following Monday, I will be at the Western Library from 5:30 to 6. And that Thursday, I will be at the Morehead City Library from 2 until 3.
Okay.
So I've got the program, several more opportunities for you to see it. But we'll be talking about growing plants in containers, selecting the right kind of container, the right kind of potting medium to go in the container, what to look for in those situations.
Didn't ask this question related to the drought. Fruits and vegetables, what impact?
For the farmers, not a whole lot, because most of our fruits and vegetables, the farmers grow those on drip irrigation, so that's not going to be a problem. Strawberries right now are doing really good. They're very sweet. They're tasty. If you haven't had a chance to get them, go ahead and get them.
The dry conditions make them sweeter, right?
The drier conditions make them sweeter. When we have a rainstorm and you go to taste them, they won't have as much flavor to them because they'll just be loaded with water and less sugar in there.
Right.
The drier conditions allow them to be much sweeter, and so right now they're tasting really, really good. Had some yesterday.
Okay.
So good.
And you didn't bring me any here.
I'm sorry. I only had 2 or 3. Somebody brought them. Somebody brought a couple to my office, and I ate them. I was hungry, and they were really good.
Okay.
But fruits and vegetables, if you have them at your house, make sure that you're watering. Consistent moisture is going to be very important for getting those vegetables to grow really well. Right now, our blueberries are starting to swell up, so you want to make sure you give them enough moisture for them to plump up and get the right size. Any of the other fruits that have already flowered, like pears and apples that have already flowered, you want to make sure that those trees don't dry out either. So I would make sure that they get plenty of moisture. I would say at least once a week on the fruits to make sure that they don't dry out and have smaller, tougher fruits to eat.